And there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde, and just here at my, twice a week job of helping to debunk and, deconstruct some of the media narratives that are used to at least keep us in the dark, if not outright deceive us. Now, I'm actually going to start with some good news, and I guess that would be in keeping with the season. After all, 'tis the season for, well, Christmas, among other things, but it's also the season for truth-telling. And in this case, this is kind of a welcome surprise. I don't know Representative Lance Clow well. He seems to be respected. And I mean that in the sense that I have a hard time envisioning him being referred to as an extremist by his fellow legislators. But I do appreciate his take on the ranked choice voting petition as well as the open primary. And this was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press a few days ago. Beware of top 4 primary and ranked choice voting petition. Now, I want you to hear some of the reasons he has of why to be careful. And he's not coming out in hardcore opposition, but he is offering some very good food for thought, specifically about complicating things that really don't need to be complicated and what that should mean to us as voters. Lance says, initiatives are often presented by strangers with a smile and a clipboard asking you to change state law. Now, we've all run into the people who are collecting signatures, right, to put an initiative on the ballot. The stranger's goal is to get your signature on a petition to put the initiative on the ballot. The petition currently circulates to place an initiative on the 2024 general election ballot, proposing 2 distinct changes and 1 subtle change to Idaho election laws. Now, Representative Clow says this raises red flags, providing enough reason to say no. The initiative claims to address top 4 primary and ranked choice voting. And his counsel is, if you're unfamiliar, just say no. The group behind the initiative, known as Idahoans for Open Primaries, relies on trust, suggesting the change is needed for open primaries. They count on you not asking important questions or reading the 19 pages of proposed legislation. By the way, that is true. That's not, smearing anybody. He's not tar and feathering people by saying that. Most people just, I don't really want to read it. Don't we have politicians? Don't we have elected representatives to do that for us? Okay, but this is a citizens' initiative. And if you're going to sign, yes, let's put it on the ballot, you should probably know what it is that you're signing your name to. Read all 19 pages? Yeah, if you're honest. If you want to do the informed vote, if you just want to, wet your finger and stick it up in the wind, I'll go whichever way it's blowing. That's a different matter. So Lance Clow asks, what does this group know? They know many citizens will listen to a short pitch and not confront the petitioner. They know that if you had the time and were willing to fully explain the proposal, you'd be left with your head spinning. They also know that nearly 31% of voters are not members of a political party, limited in their ability to participate in primaries. So he says this petition isn't about allowing unaffiliated voters the right to vote in partisan primaries. It's about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's a pretty strong statement, but I don't disagree with how he's characterizing this. I think he's right on the money. If the petitioner suggests this is about open primaries or allowing everyone to vote in primaries, that's not full disclosure. The petition's short title is as close to a description as possible. A measure to, 1, replace voter selection of party nominees with a top 4 primary. 2, require a ranked choice voting system for general elections. Representative Clow says don't fall for the petitioner's placards, signage, T-shirts, hats, and clipboards that highlight open primaries. The petition is selling you the tip of the iceberg. If you don't know what's really in the petition, he says, do not sign. Now, again, that doesn't sound like an extremist who's just out there to, control the government. That's someone telling you if you're going to exercise your vote, even by the initiative process, you should probably know what you're voting for. He says to make matters worse, this petition changes the general election, often identified as ranked choice voting. That's the term used in the title of the initiative, but nowhere in the initiative does that term exist. The initiative uses the term instant runoff voting. Now, this complex voting system requires each voter to rank candidates in order of preference. Then the results are counted by eliminating the candidate with the least votes and rerunning the tabulation with the remaining highest ranked candidates. Are you following? No? Well, you're not alone. There's some complicated twists and turns here. This eliminates the need for a runoff election, which Idaho does not require. Now, this is a different issue than the system used in the top 4 primary. Requiring primaries to have runoff elections could be a simple solution. This should not be included in one initiative. Representative Clow says, while many citizens would prefer that primaries require a majority, that could be advanced in a separate question without confusing the voter by combining multiple issues into one initiative. I believe that our Attorney General, Raul Labrador, actually tried to address this, and that seemed to really upset some people on the side of the open primaries initiative, saying that it's just not fair. He didn't do this right, but it's obviously a concern that other people are seeing. So Representative Lance Clow also says by combining 3 different elections into one, this initiative creates a multiple choice situation, but the vote requires a yes or no to the 3 embedded issues. Initiatives are not well vetted and create changes to Idaho code similar to the legislature. However, legislative actions must pass a full public hearing in both the Idaho House of Representatives and Senate. There's full debate in the committees and on the floor of both houses before delivery to the governor for a signature. You understand, something this complicated should not be a citizen initiative. And so he says, I suggest you not sign the petition, and if you are so inclined to sign it, then be sure you read the entire 19-page initiative. Can I just tell you how refreshing it is to see someone who is, I believe, looking out for the voter? And I think he's doing this not out of an extreme, bidding at the behest of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, the dark money interests from out of state, telling him how to vote. It sounds to me like he's making a very logical and reasoned appeal to, if you're going to put your name, if you're going to sign your name to put this initiative on the ballot, you should probably know what you're doing. That's what a responsible citizen would do. That's what a responsible voter does anytime he or she goes to stand in the voting booth and cast their vote. That makes sense, right? I mean, unless it's just all about numbers and it's all about power, and we really don't care about the details so long as I have power over those extremists and anybody else who doesn't think like I do, which unfortunately is how a number of people tend to see every election. It's one of the reasons why our political system is broke and becoming even more broken as we go. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the media bias. And I'm going to share with you, this is an op-ed from the Idaho Statesman, or perhaps we should call it the Idaho Statesperson, because it's urging political correctness. And they bring in actually a guest commentator. It's a minister who reminds us, Ben Kramer is a minister who says, saying happy holidays isn't a war on Christmas. It's a way to respect our neighbors. Now, I've heard the very same case made for political correctness. Well, it's not being politically correct to use someone's preferred pronouns. It's just being polite. Okay, but what happens if you don't? Are they then justified in, putting you in the pillory and letting people throw rotten tomatoes at you or whatever, or publicly flogging you for your misstep? Kind of a big difference here. So is it really just about respecting our neighbors? Let's take a look at what this pastor has to say. He says, here's a little piece of historical trivia to keep in mind this year. The word holiday is a combination of the words holy and day. Oh, yes, I think I saw that in my pedantic guidebook. The one that teaches you how to talk down to people like they're children. Okay. Enough of that. It comes to us from the Old English word halidag, which is defined as a consecrated day or religious anniversary, a holy day. And this word became a common Christmas time greeting in America by the 1930s out of recognition of the many holy days. No problem with that. And I don't think most people really, chafe at that. But this pastor reminds us it's important to remember when someone wishes us happy holidays this time of year, instead of Merry Christmas between November 20th and January 14th, there are at least 14 different religious holidays celebrated within the United States. So when someone wishes you happy holidays, they may just be wishing you a happy or holy season as a sign of respect for whatever you may be celebrating. It's always wise not to assume that anyone would know what we personally believe or what we might be celebrating during this season or not. Now, look, I have no disagreement with this whatsoever. And I think, when people start going on, it's a war on Christmas. Bring the hyperbole back just a little bit and understand that sometimes wishing someone happy holidays is actually a better way to do that. And I didn't realize this for some time. I remember maybe 25 years ago talking to one of my network affiliates at a radio station where I worked, and I'm assuming he was Jewish. I mean, he had a very Jewish sounding name. He had that wonderful East Coast accent. And when I wished him a Merry Christmas, there was kind of a hesitation, and I really didn't put it together until he wished me. And I wish you happy holidays as well. And I kind of went, oh, I really hadn't stopped to think that maybe there was a way I could, kill two birds with one stone. But I didn't feel attacked. He didn't take it as I was attacking him and trying to, force some kind of a definition on him. And I would urge you, don't get your panties in a bunch if someone wishes you happy holidays. Let's assume that there are some good intentions behind it. Let's assume that there are noble aspirations, and not immediately assume that somebody is trying to program us, into a different way of thinking. Now, having said that, anytime I pick up the Idaho Statesman, I do have to wonder, what exactly are they trying to, to indoctrinate me into thinking? And so when they have a guest commentary, of course, there's a little degree of separation. Well, it's not the editorial board from the Statesman that's doing this. We're just sharing a point of view. But here's what this pastor says. He says, at the core of thinking there's a war on Christmas is the rather arrogant belief that everyone in America should be prioritizing us Christians and our holidays above all others. We share this country with a religiously diverse population. It isn't a war. We're just being asked to share this country with others. Now, this is crossing over into left-wing, touchy-feely territory in the sense that, hey, we're just trying to get everybody to share the country. Look, I understand that. You shouldn't go around looking for offense, kind of like the left wing does in everything that anybody says. Have you thought about how the words you say make other people feel? Okay, we don't need to be that hypersensitive and looking for a reason to start airing our grievances. That's for those of you who celebrate Festivus, for instance. But at the same time, beware when people tell you this is all just about, we just all got to live together. Watch how many times that let us all just get along and hold hands means you need to abandon your beliefs or abandon your principles. Do you get the difference? You can have acceptance without conformity. And if someone wants to celebrate Kwanzaa, it's not your duty as a God-fearing Christian American to go out there and make them feel bad about it. Look, personally, I think Kwanzaa is more of a politically correct holiday, but I'm certainly not going to stand in anybody's way of celebrating it. And I'm not going to tell them you're dumb if you celebrate it. I'm just saying it's not something I would be interested in celebrating, just as I would not be celebrating other holy days for other religions. And I don't expect people to celebrate Christmas the way that I would celebrate Christmas. What is so hard about this? Just beware. Okay, it's that, guys, we're just trying to be polite, which somehow ends up being, you need to shut up and do what we're telling you and use the pronouns. Say the pronouns, dude. Okay, you don't have to do that. You can wish people a Merry Christmas. You can wish them, happy holidays, and you can do it with the best of intentions. Just don't hang your heart out there on your sleeve and act like this is the hill to die on. I do like how he concludes by saying, may we Christians be known for taking up the responsibility of embodying Christ's ethic of justice, peace, hope, love, and joy in our service to others, which is the true meaning of these seasons. I don't disagree with him here, rather than imposing the responsibility on our culture to say our preferred Christmas greetings. Now, I know there's a message here that could go a couple of different ways. I'm suggesting take it in stride and understand that it is not your duty to make sure people are giving you the proper holiday greeting. If someone wishes you any kind of a happy holiday, or even if somebody wishes me a happy Kwanzaa, I will take that in the spirit in which it's intended. Thank you. That's very thoughtful. And by the way, if you're not sure how to answer, this is something I learned, from a good Irish friend who just said, when someone wishes you, for instance, and the happiest of St. Patty's Day to you, you can always say, and to you as well. Simple, very easy way to affirm what they're doing and not get caught up in I've got to tap dance my way around here and make sure that, I'm not being politically incorrect. There are times we need to speak boldly. Don't mistake, the idea that just because someone says happy holidays that they're attacking you. Saying happy holidays, this pastor says, is actually fitting and respectful. It shouldn't be seen as a war or an attempt to take Jesus out of Christmas, although you will see that there are people who they just can't stand some representation, a creche, out there in a public area. In fact, he says Jesus is taken out of Christmas as soon as we who claim to follow Jesus respond in unholy or unloving ways to the seasoned greetings of others. Fair point, especially those whom we don't know. Moreover, Jesus is taken out of Christianity when we Christians are seen as caring more about what someone says than we are about loving them as our neighbor. Now, you may disagree or you may agree, but that seems like pretty sound advice. People who aren't looking for offense are definitely nicer people to be around. And people who are looking for offense, well, I'll cross the street. Probably you would too, just because I don't need the drama in my life. I did appreciate this commenter, though, on Twitter who said, "Good take, Idaho State's person." I thought they were very inclusive in their response. All right, a couple other quick items here to cover. This is the Statesman doing some of what they do best. Of course, that is guilt by association. Look at that headline. Nampa man becomes 7th Idahoan charged for alleged involvement in 2021 Capitol riot. Well, at least they didn't call it insurrection, since that narrative has fallen apart like a soup sandwich. But the story tells us that the FBI arrested 54-year-old Theo Hansen on Thursday in Nampa, according to a news release from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Hansen, now an Idaho resident, lived in San Diego when the alleged crimes were committed. All right, but, we got to tie him somehow to the extremists in Idaho. So I guess, if it works for the Statesman. Hansen was arrested on suspicion of felony obstruction of an official proceeding and felony civil disorder, according to the release. He also faces 3 misdemeanors: knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted building or grounds, disorderly conduct in a restricted area, and violent entry and disorderly conduct on Capitol grounds. By the way, have you seen the footage that has been released since the new Speaker of the House took his office? Whew. It makes it pretty clear. Yeah, there were some people who were bad actors, but the vast majority of people who actually went into the Capitol conducted themselves peacefully. How do we know this? Because there were police officers standing there, waving them on through, moving them along, talking with them, shaking hands, taking pictures, patting them on the back. They weren't acting like, oh my gosh, these rioters, they're destroying the temple of our democracy. I believe that's the phrase that Nancy Pelosi used. So take it with a grain of salt. The narrative itself is not doing so well, but keep in mind too that you're seeing this spun to, well, of course, these are alleged crimes that were done by this Idaho man. I like how Eric Parker set the record straight. He says, okay, so first of all, let's remember Theo, who was not a member of the Idaho 3%, was arrested. He was in a Telegram group chat called the California Patriots DC Brigade. Again, not 3%. A different guy who also wasn't 3% was in that same chat and was arrested prior. That guy was with 3 other guys that identify as 3%. So pretty disconnected, Eric says, to be such a relevant part of your story. How did the other 3 guys identify? Let me guess. They bought a patch from Amazon. Theo was not and is not any 3%. Is not 3%. The chat had nothing to do with any 3% organization, mainstream or otherwise. Just a bunch of Californians. And he tells the Statesman, this is why y'all are going out of business. It's harsh, but I think it's fair. And I'm grateful that he's doing this. Now, on the national level, here's something we hear a little bit about in Idaho, and that is the idea of, women sports being infiltrated by biologically born male interlopers pretending to be women. And now AOC has come to the defense of allowing so-called transgender people to participate in women's sports, claiming that all underage women will face genital examinations if biological men are barred from female sports. Oh my gosh, what a terrible thing. Who would want their daughter to have to undergo some kind of an examination to prove that she was really, a biological female? I have a daughter who is very active in sports, and, that would be unacceptable to me too. But let's take a look at why this is something that would be more likely to be spread on a field this coming spring than anything that's rooted in the truth. And I have to tip my hat to El Gato Malo. I love to follow this person's Substack. They're just so on target here. It takes a special kind of obliviousness to pretend that this has not been a solved problem for pretty much all of human society up until 5 minutes ago. And that some sort of special intrusive consequences need to be heaped on little girls to keep boys out of their sports. Okay, this is a good point. It's a made-up problem that's searching for a solution that includes government force, and I can tell you right now that government force is not going to come down on the side of reality, much less on the side of normalcy or on the side of family or right and wrong. The job here is to muddy the water. It's to make things difficult and complicated, kind of like a certain initiative that certain people are trying to put on the ballot for next year. Government's job is to complicate things, and that's to better convince you and I that, well, you couldn't do this without us. But actually, we could. In fact, we could do it and do it better because we wouldn't have somebody actively trying to complicate it to make it so difficult. Well, only one of our vetted experts can do this. So one last bit of advice, and this is just to take you through, the rest of the holiday season. But if you want to know the proper way to responsibly listen to mainstream media, this is how you do it. Get some good foam earplugs, put them in your ears, and read a good book. Something that actually builds your understanding of the world around you and helps you to better see not only what the way things are, but what you could be doing to help move the needle in the right direction. So we have another episode coming up a little bit later on this week, actually Friday afternoon, and we'll talk about some more things going on here in the state of Idaho. Please, all I ask is, be skeptical. You don't have to agree with me. It's better if you don't, actually, if you question this and sort it out for yourself. But understand, the media is not here to keep you informed. They are not here to help you see the light of the way things are. They're here to promote a narrative that is almost always favorable to those in power. You ever wonder why that is? And what's in it for them versus what's in it for you? I can tell you this. If you're not paying attention, you'll be led down the primrose path, and you're not going to like what lies at the end of that road. It's a lot less freedom and a lot more control by people who think they know best. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.